Hi, my name is Gibson, and I'm the creator of the Personal Development School. This is your daily breakthrough video, and I do daily breakthrough videos on this channel. So if you don't want to miss any, please hit the notification bell below and subscribe. In today's video, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what you can do when you're feeling overwhelming guilt as a fearful avoidant attachment style. Now, let me be clear first. It's not just fearful avoidant attachment styles who feel overwhelming guilt. So this video is for you if you have just ever felt so much guilt about something and you need to sort of recalibrate for a moment before proceeding with like how to deal with the situation. And if you also want to proceed in like a really healthy way that achieves results, that like doesn't just leave you feeling badly and then not resolve the problem. So the reason I'm putting this more towards FAs is fearful avoidants tend to guilt themselves really easily and struggle with a lot of guilt as a general rule. So knowing these 5 steps that we're going to go through together can really help you come out of that like sort of guilt spiral and feel like you can get back to like a constructive state of mind. And before I dive into these 5 steps, I'm going to share a story with you that tends to reflect the impact of guilt and us really guilting ourselves and what it actually does, because oftentimes you'll see through this story that it's really not productive. So I remember working with this client, and this is years and years ago now, but he was a really, really kind person, really good person, but really struggled with boundaries and easily felt like really stressed and just overwhelmed with different things that were happening in his life. And he had a boss that put a tremendous amount of pressure on him. And so he was in the real estate business, and he was trying to go into this bank and like cash these checks that he had to within the certain period of time before running back to the office to then go, pick up some stuff to go to next appointments. And he was standing in line and he was like stressing about the time. And he said there was this bank teller at this bank that he would often get. And he was like, she always made mistakes on my accounts. Like she would always like make a mistake and there would have to be a problem. She'd call the supervisor. He was like, I was waiting in line and I was like, please do not give me her. And so what ended up happening is, of course, he got her, and of course she made a mistake. And he said he was so stressed at the time. He was like, you should get a different job. Like you should do something else for a living because this isn't for you. And he said he felt so distressed, and he like ended up coming up with that. And like, just that came out of him. And he said he walked away and he felt so badly. And he came into my office. It was like a couple days later. He's like, I can't believe I said that. I can't believe I did this. I've been thinking about it like all week. It's ruined my week. Like I feel so bad. And I was like, well, did you do anything? Did you apologize or go back? And he was like, no, I'm never going back there again. I feel awful. And what this is really, so you see like this well-intentioned person under a lot of stress says something that's not healthy or appropriate, but you see, I want you to really clearly see from this story, how this is what oftentimes is a really good analogy for like most people when they feel guilt. We feel so guilty and we guilt ourselves so much that rather than reconciling or resolving the situation, we turn around and on autopilot, make the situation about us. Right? Like I'm the bad person. I'm bad. I did all these bad things. I'm never going back there again. I'm too bad of a person. Guilt isn't an emotion that drives us towards resolution. Guilt is an emotion that often drives us to hyper-focus on ourselves and our own inadequacies. And so it can actually shirk accountability if we get in the story of how awful we are. So I want you to see like how unproductive this can be. So if you're feeling this overwhelming guilt, we want to change that, right? We want to get out of that space. And it's also not necessary to like punish yourself for 3 days for something, right? We want to more like recognize the root cause of the problem, what led up to it, and then take steps towards a better desired outcome. So the very first thing is when we're in real time and we're having that experience, you first want to notice the emotions themselves. And you want to like notice some of the somatic processes for it, right? Like when I'm feeling really overwhelmed, rather than getting on the thought train of the story of how bad of a person I am and just letting that take me for a ride for days, what I want to be able to do is step off that train. And I only can do that through like getting present in the moment with my own experience internally, right? Not just like telling the story about all these awful things I do externally and how bad of a person I am and all these different things according to that. And so step 1 is to notice the emotion you're feeling through the sensations and then to try to label the emotion. It helps us bring our conscious mind activity back online. So I might be like, oh my gosh, I feel all this heaviness in my body, all this weight on my shoulders, this sort of like light nauseous feeling in my stomach and butterflies. And these are usually some of the sensations we'll feel of guilt. And I'm like, okay, what's my emotion? I feel guilty. I feel really guilty. And so then I want to ask myself, okay, so what meaning am I giving to this situation? And am I making this mean that I'm a terrible, awful person? Right. Now, I want to pause here as we go through these 5 steps. And I want to kind of take you on a side note for a minute that's extremely important and valuable. When you are caught in the story of yourself, you're also not looking at root causes. So when we look at that client who I was talking about in the bank, his root cause, it was like, well, what led up to you having that sort of, really rude remark in the moment? Like let's not just judge the remark. Let's inquire as to what leads up to situations like that so we can correct things at the root level. And for him, it was like, oh, I'm bad with boundaries. I'm constantly taking on too much. I'm constantly feeling overwhelmed. I'm constantly feeling behind the 8 ball, and there's no margin for error. So when something goes wrong, it like is going to ruin everything else for the rest of the day because I'm back to back and stressed. And so by doing boundary work, we also prevent that thing from taking place again, right? It's like, let's correct the root cause. So anyways, we're not talking about the whole thing right now. We're just talking about like in the moment that you feel guilt and shame. Okay. So step 1, notice the sensations in your body, label the emotion. Step 2, notice the meaning you give. I'm a terrible person. I should never go back to the bank again. Whatever stories you tell, question this story. And it's going to take you out of over guilting yourself and bring you back to, you're still going to recognize your error. You're still going to recognize where you went wrong, but you're going to see things from a more balanced perspective. And so what you're actually going to look for is, where is my innocence in this situation? Let me see myself as a human for a moment. Let me humanize myself. And where is my innocence? My innocence is that in the moment I said that and did that, I was panicking. I was freaking out. I was like so stressed about my boss. I was, and it's you seeing yourself as a human being too. This is not, to be super clear, this is not a justification for why you made the mistake, because we're still going to take accountability. We're still going to clean it up, but you can't just fix something or move towards resolution when you're so busy in that story of yourself and how you're bad. Usually that just creates more avoidance. So we have to try to bring back that balanced train of thought and be like, where is my innocence? Where are my pain points? Where are my fears? Where are my wounds? What was going on inside of me? And then you're going to look for innocence, right? Like, where is my innocence instead of my guilt? And it's going to just like equilibrate a little bit. And then in our next step here, actually, before I tell you the last, I'm going to tell you one more thing. We have a whole overcoming guilt and shame course and reprogramming it at the subconscious level. And also it's mental health month. And so for the month of May, you get access to all of our courses inside PDFs for 14 days for free. So you can check out using the link in the description box below. And if you struggle with guilt, dive into this course. There's a really powerful process at the end. There's ways to reprogram guilt at the root level. There's so many different tools, and I can only really pack so much content into our YouTube videos. Like, the content inside PDFs is 100 times better, because it's like, you have worksheets, you have workbooks, you have study groups, you have social routines. I do 4 live webinars a week. There's all this ability to practice and integrate the information. And then the courses are 3 hours. So they go through all the details so that the information really is like clear and easy to understand and really broken down. So anyways, you have access for free for 14 days. So please check it out. Use this opportunity to really like go through a course or 2 in that period and like integrate some information and see if this is a really good fit for you long-term. So anyways, with that being said, you're going to look for your innocence, and you're going to try to find 1 or 2 pieces of evidence for your innocence. How am I innocent? Like, where is my innocence? It doesn't mean I'm completely innocent. Of course I made a mistake, but where is there some innocence in here, and just instead of pure guilt, pure, I'm such a bad person. Then step 5, when you're a little more balanced, then you can ask yourself, okay, what can I do to take accountability and to correct root cause? And by looking at the root cause that led up to the situation, I can then do something productive so that I'm not repeating these sorts of things again, right? You don't want to go into the next bank and have the next issue with the next bank teller because you still haven't corrected the boundary issue, right? So what can I do to take accountability to correct root cause? And by the way, like, root cause and accountability are 2 sort of separate things. So ideally, taking accountability means like, go back and have a conversation with the bank teller and say an apology and say, you know what, I'm sorry. I was under so much stress and I have been struggling with boundaries a little bit in my life. And I kind of took that out on you, and it's unfair. And I really apologize. And so by doing that, right, we humanize ourselves. We also let somebody else know what was going on, and it helps them not take it so personally, right? It's not like, oh, I'm horrible at my job. It's like, oh, you were under stress and you took it out on me and it wasn't okay, but that's what was going on. It's not about me. So by really seeing ourselves first and treating ourselves like a human being, we step out of this like incessant guilt, and then we can actually share from a vulnerable perspective in the way of correcting our relationship with others, which helps the other person to not take our actions so personally, and then also allows us to address root cause take full responsibility for our actions, and have a healthy solution and strategy moving forward. So these are the 5 steps. I know it's a lot of info. If you want to go deeper into these 5 steps and like reprogramming too, in the 14 days, check out the Emotional Mastery and Belief Reprogramming course, or the 21 Tools to Reprogram Your Subconscious Mind course. It really gives you like context into like what's going on, how to process what's taking place at the subconscious level, and how to like really level up to create change. So we're not constantly going through these loops of these same sorts of patterns of guilt and shame and not good enough and pushing people away and like all these different things that can take place because of the ways we've adopted different coping mechanisms at the subconscious level that we may now want to release. So anyways, I hope this all makes sense. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe if you haven't yet, and I will see you in the next video.